Sun's out, GPUs are still expensive, physical games come with codes and hope, and somehow we're living in a timeline where Nintendo's flirting with ray tracing while indie devs are out there remaking your childhood using 6 people in a coffee machine. The year's only halfway over, and Kojima already rated Death Stranding 2 a 20 out of 5 stars. But what else is actually coming out? I like to do a video each month for next month's upcoming games, and that means all sorts of titles. I'm sure I didn't get them all. It's not called every single game coming out in June, but if I did and you want to talk about it, throw it in the comments. We'll leap in there and we'll discuss it on the next video or in the podcast. First up, Dune The Awakening. A lot of people right now are going, holy crap, I didn't expect that one to come up. But Dune The Awakening, it's an open world survival MMO. It's developed by Funcom, and it's set in an alternative universe in Frank Herbert's Dune world. That's right. It's an alternative universe and a fictional universe we've seen like 3 versions of anyway. No one's mentioning Children of Dune, by the way. Let's pretend that one never happened. Dune Awakening comes out June 20th, 2025 for PC via Steam, with early access on June 5th for those that pre-order the extra deluxe editions. Console versions are coming out at some later time. At its core, Dune Awakening promises a much harsher politically charged multiplayer experience than we might get in a lot of other MMOs, where the location and its interactions are as much a character as the factions who are actually fighting over it, or at least that's what they promise. But the big catch for me here, and the thing that actually gets me excited, is it hugely diverges from the original saga. Paul Atreides was never born here. Lady Jessica followed the Bene Gesserit strict orders, and she had a daughter instead. You've got Atreides surviving the Harkonnen assault, and so everybody's fighting over control of spice. As the player, you begin as a prisoner of everyone's least favorite mother-in-law class, the Bene Gesserit. Your mission is to uncover the fate of the Freeman and awaken the Sleeper. That mystery is wrapped up in all these political, spiritual, and existential complexities that, honestly, when you watch Dune, read Dune, or listen to Dune, it all fits. The gameplay takes the form of a survival MMO, and it does have a great deal of world building, factional intrigue, and players able to navigate a massive world of Arrakis. They manage basic resources. You still got your water, your shelter, and spice while contending with sandstorms, heat waves, and the ever-loving, ever-looming threat of colossal sandworms, everybody's favorite. You'll be able to pledge allegiance to factions like House Atreides or Harkonnen, and that shifts all the available missions around and how others are going to interact with you here. Visually, it just feels like Dune Awakening's pretty damn good and is a lot like Conan Exile filtered through the sci-fi lens of Dune with a giant hostile world. Seems exciting to me. I'm not into MMOs or survival games. They've turned punching trees into a stretchy career pretending to break bread with gamers when all they're trying to do is steal all of theirs. And they have to hit right for me to like them. To be honest, a desert location makes me usually want to poke my eyes out, but Dune has a ton of political intrigue and crazy shit, and that intrigues the hell out of me, which is 2 intrigues, so there you go. If any game can get me back in MMOs and survival games, it's a mix of them in a world where even the good guys would be bad guys to other bad guys in another show. Next up, speaking of not knowing who's who or who maybe is out for you, Alters. I get to play a preview for this, link in the description, and I can say, while it first appears to be a survival sim with Mass Effect kind of feels to it, there's a lot going on here. It's developed by 11-Bit Studios, the people who made Heartbreak a core mechanic in This War of Mine. This game aims for something more than the basic don't die design. It's about what happens when your survival is less about managing inventory and more about managing yourself, or yourselves, or multiple yourself. You play as Dulski, a space miner who ends up alone on a hostile alien rock after everything goes sideways during a mission. And that rock, that planet, not friendly. It's not neutral either. It's basically out to incinerate you, courtesy of a brutal solar cycle that bathes everything in death light if you stand there for too long. It's like the world's slowest executioner who doesn't put you on the guillotine first. It just follows you around, slowly waiting for you to take too much time, then thwack. Every minute in the real world is a minute in the game world, and every minute that the sun is catching up to you. To stay alive, you have to roll across the surface in this wheel-shaped mobile base, a hamster ball for humans. But it's packed with workstations, sleeping quarters, AI, computers, copying facilities, and, well, not a small amount of existential dread. But you also go out and mine materials that allows for you to upgrade that hamster wheel. Here's where things get a little bit strange, though. Since you can't fix a situation alone, you use a mineral called rapidium. It's a substance that lets you manifest alternate versions of yourself called alters. These aren't clones in that overall sci-fi sense we've seen before. They're actually people pulled from different life paths that you have and different decisions that you did or didn't make. Each one carries their own emotional debt from the choices that they made because, frankly, this character's life hasn't been the greatest. Every alter comes with different skills, traumas, and a personality that sometimes is helpful, sometimes is not, and is usually always interesting. The game doesn't treat each character like tools. You're not hiring minions. You're negotiating with fragmented reflections of yourself. They don't all like you. They don't all trust you. They certainly don't all like your breakfast. I can tell you that much. And some of them actually resent the hell out of you for bringing them into the world. You're in this hamster wheel and you're trying to get this fortress moving and running and expanding it compartment by compartment. What you end up balancing here in a weird way, almost like a video game version of Multiplicity, except everybody has guilt and shame and sorrow in their backgrounds, is that alters have their own needs and morale. If it's ignored, they spiral out of control. You're managing their psychology as much as their ability to produce and help you move forward through this game world. Think Mass Effect meets Solaris meets Moon filtered through a grimy sweat survival loop. Each version of the character employs a different what if, and you're not just watching those differences, you're collaborating with all those different characters. That reminds me of a lot of different shows or movies that handle clones, where at some point the clone of the clone starts to wonder if they're the self, the main one. The real threat isn't just all of these things that you have to balance and build and the overall mystery, but also, can you survive, and do you actually want to, especially if it's just a bunch of copies of you? Next up, FBC Firebreak. This is from Remedy. It's for PC, Steam, and Epic, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and it'll be launch day on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. This is on June 17th. This is 6 years after Control. Remedy's back inside the oldest house, but this time they're not actually handing you a gun and asking you to figure everything out solo. You're in there with multiple different characters. This is a multiplayer game. And here, the old house is still standing, sure, but the bureau's been basically gutted, and what's left is deep crap, consistently under siege by the evil that couldn't be contained. You are a team of 3 firebreakers who are called in to clean up the mess that the world's in. You and 2 friends, or some AI if you don't have friends or jobs, go out there together and you take out enemies and face consistently changing locations across a series of spots that get soured by the supernatural. Before jumping into each mission, you're going to pick a crisis kit. Each one's a different player archetype. You have a jump, a fix, and a splash kit. And the game is about understanding how to work together so that each team and each group is going to have to understand a bit of the strengths and weaknesses of each kit that they put together. And Remedy's also discussed that they have ideas for other jobs coming later this year or next year, and I'm sure there's going to be different locations as well. When this was originally announced, I didn't really know exactly what to expect other than to be interested because I'm a fan of Remedy and their world choice. I felt a bit, though, like they might be diluting some of the other stuff that they put out. After looking at this more, it seems like a lot of people who've played this have really enjoyed it. There's been some previews out there, and people seem to be in love with the way it controls and feels. No pun intended. A game that apparently has already delivered itself, and that's Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. This is a PS5 exclusive on the 26th. The story is 11 months after the original ending. Sam is living a quiet life, and of course, things go to absolute shit. It leads him to Mexico, and then somehow later on to Australia. Not quite sure how. But regardless, they have built a title that feels directly like a sequel. It's not a game that's going to change a bunch. The overall design philosophy is definitely still expanding and going around and searching and exploring, but they put in a great deal more combat. They've been refined, and the people who've had previews of this stated that it is a good step up from the original. The world itself also has different environmental effects that we haven't seen in the original game. Navigation is also much more involved. As always, it's going to be all over the place when it comes to the psychology and the way this feels. Again, very positive previews. And you know it's going to look insane. It's going to be insane, and understanding it's probably going to drive you a bit insane. With improved combat and just a possibly more cohesive world space, I'm keeping a closer eye on this one than I ever did the original game. Not reinventing the wheel, but possibly putting some shocks on it to refine the ride. It's a good way to handle a sequel. Next up, we've got Broken Arrow by Slytherin that comes out June 19th for Windows. I love war. I love things exploding, and I'm a bit of a sweet spot here or there for blowing crap up in semi-modern locations. Large-scale warfare that actually lets you feel like a battlefield commander, but also built around commanding modern American and Russian forces in huge battlefields. Sign me up. What makes Broken Arrow seem to tick is an attempt to marry strategic flexibility and decision making. The maps are huge, and they're based on actual locations in the real world, because this is based on a Cold War that has once again gone wrong, as a lot of these games seem to be. You outfit vehicles, aircraft with different weapons, armor types, sensors, and countermeasures, and the devs have claimed around 1,500 possible combinations, and probably the same number of ways to completely do it wrong. Broken Arrow has been in development for a while. This was actually revealed, I believe, in 2019 in a crowdfunding campaign on a Russian Kickstarter-like page. Since then, it's gone through a ton of phases, and they had an open beta in 2024 that reportedly had like 250,000 players, which is a ton. With the different hybrid approach to real-time tactics and strategic depth, I actually think Broken Arrow looks not just like it's stepping into the genre, but it's sort of saying, hey, here's something different that we can do. This is a genre that's actually quite full right now. There's a lot of games, especially mimicking the Cold War gone wrong, but Broken Arrow looks to be pretty goddamned good, and I'm a huge fan of the titles that handle that RTS and military, but also let you feel like a commander. So for me, pretty exciting. But more exciting, weirdly, is when I found about in the last couple months Voidsayer. So Voidsayer is an upcoming dark fantasy monster taming RPG. This is coming out June 2nd for Steam, described as a turn-based strategy RPG with a heavy tactical layer, as well as monster collecting and taming in it. Now, normally that wouldn't grab me, but this one is set in a world on the brink of collapse, and it's being consumed by a force called the Abyss, which distorts and devours existence. You play as a character who's a seeker, one of the last humans capable of surviving in this realm, and you bind and command monsters to fight for you. As you'd expect with a game like this, you've got your settlement that can be updated and upgraded to train your different monsters, and there's 100 of them to collect, evolve, and synergize. Each monster or entity, as they're called in this game, has a ton of elemental affinities, passive effects, and just different abilities that you can pattern one with the other and sort of put your team together. Every improvement you make also changes the way you dive into the Abyss, because it is procedural and it takes into account what you've done, what you've upgraded, and the different characters that you're facing or have faced. It's not just about surviving the next run, it's also about understanding what tools you need to go out and do so and what you need to take home. Voidsayer has something I didn't know that I wanted, and that's a dark-ass brooding attitude. It just feels different, and every power and monster and location that I've seen looks like a haunted house version of other games in the genre. Procedurally generated maps, I'm okay with a game like this. It's got a ton of combat. It's got a world wrapped in sorrow and shadow, and I'm all for that as well. If there's anything I'm going to see how it works out is the roguelike stature of this game mixed with that turn-based combat, and just if I want to go and how that cycle continues to pull you back. But from what I've seen of this, Voidsayer, definitely interested. Next up, Rematch. So this is from Slowcap. This is the guys behind Sifu and Absolver. It's taken all of that, the martial arts ability to control and that combat, and it's putting it into a soccer game. This will be out June 19th for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox Series S and X. It's all about speed, strategy, and style, and not a tiny bit of, I would say, a love or excitement for soccer or Rocket League. But what I like about here is there's no fouls, there's no stoppages, there's no offsides. It's 3v3, 4v4, and 5v5 games. It's not just chaos. You're actually going out there, and there's a different strategy here. There's first a stamina management system. So sprinting and advanced maneuvers to make sure that you can fake somebody out drains your energy, forcing you to pick different moments very carefully, unless you want to just go chugging around behind everybody like you have COPD. There's the burst function, which is a sprint or a quick dash. That's perfect for intercepting a pass or possibly turning another sweaty player into a sweatier cussing POS like we know and love in arcade game voice chats. One thing to note about this, there's no single player campaign. There's some solo training modules that they're going to do later. So when you jump in, it is going to be jumping into the deep end. And honestly, you may think the same thing. A sports title, it seems like a goddamn huge left turn for Slowcap. The DNA of their previous work, though, looks like it's actually coming up in Rematch. And their open beta had 100,000 people playing. It's going to have full crossplay for everybody. I never expected to be excited for a Rocket League competitor at this point, I guess, genre companion, nor one that involved soccer. But Rematch actually looks quite enjoyable. And we'll just have to see if it introduces new players to this kind of formula well, or if it's a game that is, honestly, for experts only, at least at first. So keep your eye out for it. Speaking of eye, next up is Mind's Eye. This is a single-player action-adventure game. This is developed by Build a Rocket Boy and published by IO Interactive. The game will be available on PlayStation 5 and the Series systems as well as Windows. Mind's Eye is an odd one, but bear with me here. It's a third-person shooter. It's got some open map elements in the main story, but it also ships with a massive editor that you can change and send to other people at any time so they can interact with your stories. Everything in Mind's Eye occurs in or around this Red Rock City, which is the fictional or near-future desert metropolis. The narrative centers around Jacob, a former special operator who is equipped with a neural implant known as the Mind's Eye. The gameplay is designed as, again, a linear third-person experience, which is, of course, going to involve your driving and combat and storytelling. The game also is built using Arcadia. This is a custom tool for actually creating content in it, which also enables the delivery of new gameplay experiences from them to you. While we haven't seen a ton of data about this, I did get to sit in and watch some previews and get a big description of what exactly was going on. The idea that this is fully a editor inside of a game that's running at the same time, I love that kind of idea. I love the idea of an editor and being able to just go in there and using pure curiosity to adjust what's going on in the game world. Think of it as sort of open mission area. We've seen titles like this fail spectacularly. In fact, a lot of times it's the inability to easily change things that seems to get gamers excited about diving into something and almost hacking stuff. However, as a huge fan of Arma, when it does work, it works so well that gamers seem to stick around for years. So we'll have to see on June 20th. The combat, the stuff like that I've seen looks pretty okay, but I need to get my hands on it and sort of look at how that editor works. But what I did see and a lot of the adjustments that they make, I came up with some ideas even in just those couple minutes. So at the very least, for curiosity's sake, that one's on my list. Speaking of curiosity, I have to add this one in. Let's get something out of the way. I think with any game discussion about an upcoming title, if anything has a dick or a vagina, and the first thing someone asks is, can I have sex with it? If a new car mechanic simulator come out, somebody probably asks the same thing. So a game called Date Everything speaks for itself. Developed by Sassy Chap Games and published by Team 17, this is coming out June 17th for PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, and the Xbox Series consoles. Now, in Date Everything, you play as a recently unemployed person who lost their job to AI, so pretty much like 50% of everybody listening. But before despair takes you over, you're gifted a weird pair of magical glasses called the Datavaders that let you see everyday objects as sentient, dateable beings. There's over 100 characters, each have branching storylines, multiple endings, and the narrative scope here is pretty massive. It's around 1.2 to 1.4 million words. The Datavader glasses let you engage with virtually everything around you. You uncover hidden characters, quirks that makes each interaction unpredictable. Relationships can be romantic, platonic, or even hostile, depending on all those choices. And those choices shift the actual world itself, altering locations and scenarios. So people who like visual novels, this one sounds like it's for you. What's crazy here, though, is how many people are voicing characters or items in the game, I guess. With over 4 hours of original music, 70,000 voice lines, you have Felicia Day, Ben Starr, Matt Mercer, Laura Bailey, Troy Baker. But what surprised me the most is that they're doing a bit of meta here. For example, Matt Mercer is a 20-sided dice in this game. Trust me, I'll never look at somebody else's dice bag like that again. When it comes down to it, that is a fit that actually works quite well. And I sort of like the tongue-in-cheek here. We'll have to see if this one pans out. I know it's not for everybody, but I had to put it on here because it was just one of those titles that when I first saw it get announced, I was like, what the hell? And it just kept going. And the more they've announced, and again, that meta of the different characters, I don't want to spoil some of this, but some of the other characters are sort of what you would think. When you find out who voice acted some particular character in the game, you'll see that actual character in the title as you're playing it. You'll be like, you know what? That makes perfect sense. Another thing that makes perfect sense is making a game and a series if that series just continues to do well. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic. I remember when Five Nights at Freddy's was some weird game that I thought was Markiplier's face on a toy because I saw a random thumbnail and didn't know who it was or what the game was. As a series, Five Nights, whether you've always loved them or disliked them, they never really stopped throwing different ideas into the mix and changing it up. So Secret of the Mimic is the 11th game in the series. This is developed by Steel Wool Studios. It's published by Scott Games, and it's scheduled to release on June 13th for PC and PlayStation 5. So the exclusivity here seems to be for PlayStation 5. No Switch version or Xbox version I could find. This is set in 1979, so the game's actually traveling farther back here than I believe any other game in the timeline. So it anchors that story a little bit. You're exploring Murray's Costume Manor, an abandoned workshop once owned by a unique inventor, I guess I would say, Edwin Murray. Under orders from Fazbear Entertainment, your mission is to recover a long-buried prototype technology that is here. Nothing's ever simple when it comes to this kind of stuff, so inside the manor, players have to uncover all kinds of fragments of Edwin's weird work, his unfinished work, and descend into the nightmare locations as well as the nightmare of the mimic character themselves. This isn't about firepower or anything like that. You're armed with your wits and that gadgetry and the desire to get out alive. The experience is going to have you going around, exploring, stealthing, puzzle solving, all of this with you at the same time having to understand the clues and the messages that you get throughout the gameplay. I'm more stoked to leap into this. I love going back to the start in games. I like it when there's a prequel after the normal titles. That kind of stuff just interests me, whether it's shows or movies or books. So perhaps finding out a bit more and getting scared shitless. Seems like it could be a little bit of fun. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic again comes out on June 13th. Now here is a game that I think is awesome. It's got some restrictions, but I have to put it on the list, and that's called Parallel Experiment. So this is a noir puzzle adventure. It's developed by 11 Puzzles, and it's launching June 5th. This is going to come out on a bunch of stuff: Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. It's the second standalone chapter in the Cryptic Killer series. You don't have to worry if you haven't played the first one, which is unboxing the Cryptic Killer. You can jump into this without needing to have played the other ones, as a lot of it's explained to you. The games are cooperative puzzle games, parallel experiments at the same time as you play. It's a game where separation is the actual rule of the title. Communication between you and the other person, and from the first puzzle onward, they have different perspectives and only half the information they need to complete the puzzle. We've seen a couple games like this. In particular, this first one, The Cryptic Killer, I really enjoyed, and I cannot wait for Parallel Experiment. The game's got 80 plus puzzles, and it's all over the place. Cryptic ciphers, you have to solder circuit boards, you have to do parallel puzzles at the exact same time, decipher computer passwords, and even some very, very weird puzzles at the same time as somebody else is on the other end of your Discord or your voice chat. Also, if you want to leap in, you can actually play their free Unsolved Case, which is on their Steam page if you want to see what this game is like. The interactivity is also going to go beyond puzzles. The world reacts differently to every player, especially during dialogue encounters. NPCs have different responses. They force each player to ask different questions and sometimes offer different clues depending on the player and the way they've talked and the timing in which they do so. There's also a notebook that you can draw directly into. You can sketch puzzles, you can leave warnings, that kind of stuff. Visually, I think the game leans hard into that noir-inspired comic aesthetic. I like that. I've liked these kind of games. They're great for just to sit back and play with another person that you know, and solving those brain teasers, but also trying to communicate to one another what you're seeing and what's going on the screen. I love that. To go completely away from co-op comic books and 2D murder mysteries to the murder racing best friend losing racing game, it's coming out soon, Mario Kart World. This is going to be here June 5th, 2025, and it's a flagship title for the Nintendo Switch 2. Blasting around tracks, backstabbing your buddies, and Bowser. Mario Kart World is in some ways, I think, carrying the Nintendo Switch 2 on its back, in particular just because there aren't, well, many first-party titles for this system when it comes out. One of the boldest changes to the formula in Mario Kart is that World ditches the traditional track-by-track formula in favor of a more massive, interconnected open world. So you'll be exploring different mushroom kingdoms, cities, forests, mountains, coasts, and then you jump back into events during races. So you get to wander around between those events, you get to uncover secrets, tackle side missions, and explore, and then jump in when you want to. It is an open world system that looks like it's aiming to bring actual exploration into kart racing, which is not something I expected to say. But it hasn't changed up everything, and I think this is one of the better parts of this game. It still has core modes. It's got Grand Prix and Time Trials and Battle Mode. It has a 24-player versus race with a knockout tour, which drops the last 4 positions each time you go around the track. The developers have stated this will be 4K in docked mode. Early footage looked pretty good. It's got some good draw distance, dynamic weather, and the controls seem spot on if you're a Mario Kart fan. As somebody who isn't necessarily always into these games, some of what I've been reading and checking out when it comes to the trailers in the last couple weeks have started to have this one grow on me a bit. We'll just have to see when that one comes out. But one that is for sure on my list, and I will absolutely be checking out day one, this is Tron Catalyst, June 17th. It's PC, PS5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. BitHell Games is back with a sequel to their original game, Tron Identity. But where that game leaned into the noir-style storytelling through a visual novel format like the aforementioned Parallels does, this one is an isometric action adventure. You play as Exo, who's a program running deliveries in the art grid, before, of course, one of them goes wrong, and now you have an unstable new ability called the Glitch. This is a time reset mechanic that lets you rewind moments, test outcomes, and rewrite small slices of the game world. And what's great about this and the way the story works is that skill doesn't just pan out in combat. You've got this glitch, which means do-overs are not failure, and a lost fight becomes data, a failed conversation now becomes intel or information. Another thing they promised is that they understand the IP, and you will be able to engage in mini games or activities in this title that are repetitions of what we've seen in the movies. So you're going to have your driving around on light cycles, all of the stuff that you would expect. I love the idea of this and the ability for you to go in there and not only get a story delivered to you, but also in that isometric fashion to up the combat a little bit from the prior game, but continuing the story of the prior game. I think in a way this is really how to nail the IP, especially when you have Tron Ares coming out soon. As a huge fan of the IP, really no matter how they tell a story in these games, I've usually been a fan of Tron. I just like the world. I like the investigation of the different layers in which that undercurrent of the computer technology mimics real world, but at the same time offers just such a different feel to it. And I've liked the last couple Tron games. I'm hoping to see more, so I'm excited for this one. Last but not least, we have Lost in Random, The Eternal Die. This is a sequel to the original game in 2021. Lost in Random trades that third-person puzzle combat of the original game and moves to a roguelike experience. This is developed by Stormteller Games. It's published by Thunderful. This is coming out for the PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC. It's also day one on Game Pass. This time you're playing as the Queen, the villain from the actual first game, who's partnered up with Fortune, which is a sentient dice, and you'd switch to an isometric style, leaning into that roguelike structure. Combat's real-time, it's very aggressive, and it has a dice rolling system that drops a layer of unpredictability into every single room that you actually go into. Replayability, they say, is baked in because every single run is going to reshuffle the overall deck of how you go about exploring the game world. For example, room structures and power-ups. What you'll notice in this list is a couple of games switch things up pretty severely from their prior titles, and the same can be said for this. And when I saw it, I was like, you know what? This actually looks like it might interest me more than the prior game did. Now, for a lot of fans who were big fans of that original game and how it presented its style, its viewpoint, its combat, this might not be for you. The idea of having this strange living dice with you as a companion is also always cool. The demo's live right now. I think it's on Steam and Xbox, so if you want to jump in there and sort of see if you like how it plays, you can do so. There's going to be a standard and what's called a Fortune edition, which includes a digital art book and that kind of stuff. But hats off to them for switching it up. Speaking of Switch 2. This is just an honorable mention. Everybody knows Switch 2 is coming out. This is June 5th. Hey, it's got VRR, except not in full display mode, just in your handheld. 1080p resolution. It's got an 8-inch screen. I actually think the Nintendo Switch 2 is pretty much exactly what I want when it comes to a handheld from Nintendo power-wise. Sure, we'd like it to be a little bit more power, but we know what that cost would be. Here's the thing for me, though, the game price. Obviously, I do have to point it out, even if I'm doing most exciting things about June. I am excited. Sometimes I just get excited about hearing people complain about stuff. We're going to have to see how that works. Also, 23 games at launch isn't bad. It's fronted by Mario World and Donkey Kong. So yeah, and Donkey Kong isn't even out in the same month. Those aren't necessarily big system sellers, but 23 games from other people is awesome. And every developer I've talked to has plans for Switch 2 support, which is awesome to me. That idea of everybody looking and saying, you know what, maybe we couldn't do titles on the Switch day and date, but we can now, as well as, of course, ports. We should expect all those. But delivering into a schedule that doesn't have massive Nintendo games, or at least ones that have a more broader appeal, because Kart is specifically for a particular type of gamer. Let's be honest. Usually you would hope for 3 main games from a company. That really isn't done anymore. Game prices are creeping up, and we really want to see how the power works, because I've heard some rumors that handheld versus docked sort of difference in that power delivery, which is something we expected, but we'll just have to see how that pans out. Speaking of panned out, if you liked the video and it panned out for you, give it a thumbs up. If it didn't, give it a thumbs up. Check out the podcast, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment, talk about the games that you want to talk about. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.